Hey guys, MutantCowboy here. This is going to be a slightly longer video than I normally like to do, but there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, a lot of things that I want to get to. I'm going to be talking about talents, I'm going to be talking about, some testing of things, I'm going to be talking about the build, obviously, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of things that affect hybrid builds in general. So if you have any interest in that stuff, if you have any interest in these types of builds, stay tuned, watch the whole thing. I think you could probably at least get some useful information out of it. Maybe just another perspective that might help you out in the game. Now, as many of you know, I did release a build a few days ago about hardwired. It's basically just a DPS hybrid hardwired build with mostly red rolls. And I talked about why it did not work exactly as I hoped. And the biggest point of that was because skills that fit hybrid roles very well do not fit very well with the hybridization of hardwired. So basically the big thing about hardwired is you get skills back quickly when you use them. The best skills for hybridization, however, are the skills that have a long duration, meaning that you don't actually need to constantly, send them out and get them back. So that would mostly be skills like the striker drone and the assault turret. You don't need the benefit of hardwired for those skills, which basically puts a lot of damper on, trying to hybridize that. To actually get a benefit out of hardwired, you need to rely on skills that are basically one-time booms, like sticky bomb or seeker mines. You need to basically use skills that have a high damage output for a single use, and to get them back quickly and to use them again. But therein lies the problem with hardwired hybrids. You're not doing enough skill damage to actually make those skills worthwhile and worth using. So really, at the end of the day, what this actually means for you as a player is that a lot of the options, a lot of the skills, a lot of the weapons just do not fit the hybrid playstyle well enough to actually be used. And yes, this is incredibly limiting. This is a big reason why hybrid builds just aren't very good, because people just assume that something that works for something else will work well for them. And it's just not true. And like I said, with the skills, there's only a few skills that actually work well with hybrid builds. And it's not very competent if you try to choose something that does not pair well. It's like, wearing Sokolov but only using shotguns. You want to match things that actually work well together, because, just having selection for the sake of selection doesn't mean anything if you are laying on the floor and you can't really fight anyone. If you can't do anything, then there's really no point in just having a hybrid build, just to have a hybrid build, right? I mean, you don't want to have a build just to have a build and say you did it. Now, with that said, there are some key talents that I think we need to pay attention to. Kinetic momentum is alright for a hybrid build, but not for a damage hybrid build. Spotter is probably one of the most famous ones, and there's an issue with that I'll talk about. Overwatch is also a very good one, but this is generally for a team build. So if you are actually using your build and you basically just play mostly in team stuff, then Overwatch can be very, very useful. My personal favorite is still going to be Glass Cannon, because I don't really mind the squishiness. It doesn't bother me that much. I can find ways to avoid taking that damage. But it gives me the most damage for all of my damage sources. Now, the big thing with this is that these are giving you weapon damage and skill damage. That is the key takeaway. Spotter gives you weapon damage, skill damage. Glass Cannon, weapon damage, skill damage. When you jump into the backpacks, however, you're not finding these talents. You're not finding good hybrid talents. Most of what you are finding are single aspect talents. So combined arms, when you shoot an enemy, you get skill damage, meaning that you're not boosting the weapon damage whenever you use this talent. Tech support, whenever your skills get a kill, you increase your skill damage. There's not too much option here. There's only one actual option that really does anything for both sides, and it is a very wishy-washy skill, and something that I probably wouldn't even really want to use even if I was in a team. So with that being said, you really need to pick one. You have to pick something that you are going to slightly specialize in more than something else, or at least have a plan to counter it with, some of your attribute roles or whatnot. So basically, know when it comes to your backpack talents, you need to pick a side. You need to either pick you're going to invest into skill damage, or you're going to pick weapon damage. If you're going to pick weapon damage, of course, vigilance and versatile are two good options there. But besides for those options to boost weapon damage, or the previous options to boost skill damage, opportunistic is really the only one that can double dip on both of those damage sources. However, you need to use a shotgun or a marksman rifle to actually use it, and basically you only have 5 seconds and you have to hit the target repeatedly with it or mark different targets. So for a build that's basically got 3 damage sources and you might be sending it against 3 different targets, having something like this really just kind of ruins your weapon damage because you're basically just trying to ping pong off and keep this buff on other sources. So while it technically is the only one that does do it, it's not a good option. Personally, I would probably pick tech support or combined arms just because I think those are probably the 2 easiest ones to keep active. But vigilance is also an equally good option for the weapon side of things. Now, I said I was going to do some testing, and basically I did that. I chose a couple different chest pieces and I equipped them and just to try to see the returns. One of the biggest ones is spotter. I constantly hear people telling me to use spotter. And it is worth noting that there is a known issue with spotter. Basically, when you're using the turret and the drone, it double dips on that 15% amplified damage. So you're not actually getting 15% amplified damage on your skills. You're getting something more akin to like 32, 33% amplified damage for those 2 skills because of spotter. However, I don't like spotter because one, half of my damage isn't getting that great of a boost. So my actual weapon damage isn't as good as glass cannon. Plus, if I'm shooting 3 different targets, I'm constantly having to make sure that they're pulsed, and I'm constantly having to make sure that whatever my drone's going after is pulsed. I don't like that. And in addition to that, I'm also losing a little bit from that mod slot that has to take the laser pointer on it. This is why I like glass cannon, especially perfect glass cannon. Even if I am a little bit squishy, it is giving me a greater universal buff to all of my damage sources. Another quick note is kinetic momentum. This one obviously just focuses on your skills. However, the buff, that 30% buff, is relatively similar to a buff that you would get from glass cannon. So it is an option if you can't really get a good chest piece, or at least with the correct rolls. Kinetic momentum will suffice in a lot of ways. Now, this is by no means a universal list of what you have to have. Or, depending on the hybrid build that you are going for, you might think that a different option could be slightly better in specific situations. My situation, I want to deal as much skill damage and weapon damage as possible. I don't have any other reason. I don't have any other use for anything else. This isn't about survivability. This is about pure damage with all of my damage sources. So I want my turret, my drone, and my weapon hitting as hard as they can all the time. As you can see, I can melt things with my turret, with my drone, with my gun. And the most important thing is I have enough weapon damage to actually be able to stagger the enemy. So if I get rushed from behind, or if basically an enemy pops out of nowhere and is shooting me, I can shoot back and not die because I can stagger them and end them before they end me. Now, diving into the build really quickly here, obviously I am using the Technician Specialization for the biggest reason being that additional skill tier that I am getting. Of course, I am getting the skill damage bonus, and I am getting the damage to mechanical targets. Now, jumping into my weapon, it is my P416 with In Sync on it. I really like this weapon. It's stable, it's accurate, it feels good, and In Sync is just an amazing talent to use. When it is fully buffed, when my skills are shooting, when I am shooting, I am getting that 30% weapon damage bonus, and I am getting that 30% skill damage bonus. This talent is probably one of the best talents in the game, and I've been saying that for a while. I've been using In Sync since I got it. It's basically an amazing talent for pretty much every build. My secondary is Harmony with Perfectly In Sync, and obviously these two just match perfectly together. There is no downside to running 2 weapons with In Sync on them. Basically, I am constantly getting that damage bonus. When I switch to my rifle, now I'm getting 40 and 40. So it's even better. And it just works. My mask, I am using 3 pieces of Hana Yu. So I get that skill haste, that skill damage, and that weapon damage. So for everyone who's like, I hate Hana Yu, why does it have weapon damage at the 3rd bonus? Why is there a red mod slot? This is the kind of build that you have it for. So I get 10% crit damage, I get 6% crit chance, and I get 5.6% crit chance from my mod. My backpack, my other Hana Yu, is my force multiplier. Now, this one isn't designed specifically for this build. This one is actually for a skill build that I have. So I wouldn't want one with skill haste on it. I would want crit on it. And maybe I wouldn't even want skill damage on it. I might want crit. But Either way, this is still a good backpack. I've got a crit chance mod on there, and then I've got perfectly combined arms on there, so whenever I'm shooting an enemy, I'm giving my skills 30% more damage. My chest piece, Providence Defense. Now, obviously, there's some issues with Providence Defense, whether you want to use it or not, but Perfect Glass Cannon for that 30% amplified damage is very, very nice. Now, obviously, a different brand set bonus might be more beneficial with just regular glass cannon. So, I mean, you could get 10% skill damage with a Wyvern Wear, and you could just roll it into reds, or you could keep skill damage. There are other options in case you didn't want to use Providence Defense and basically kind of waste with that 10% headshot damage. So, if you did have other choices, if you did have other rolls, I would definitely go with what you think is best. You could go with Wyvern Wear, like I said, for that 10% skill damage. You could go with Fenris for that 10% assault rifle damage. If you were using an LMG, you could definitely go with the Contractor's Gloves. If your primary is going to be the Harmony rifle, then of course you could definitely go with Fox's Prayer knee pads. Now, that's all up to you, whether the 10% headshot bonus is actually something good and usable to you. I think that 5% amplified damage is probably stronger than most of the other options. Now, my gloves are Cheska Varoba for that 10% crit hit chance, and of course, obviously, crit chance, crit damage. My knee pads, my third piece of Hanayu, crit chance, crit damage. And then, of course, my holster is a Walker Harris, and that's for the 5% weapon damage. And as you can see, weapon damage, crit chance, crit hit. Another thing that you could use and would actually be beneficial to this build is a Grupo Sombra for that 15% crit hit damage. That might even be better than having a Walker Harris. So, I think 15% crit damage is better than the 5% weapon damage. Obviously, it all depends on you, basically what you prefer, what choices you have, and basically the gear that you have. It's great to say that this is the best in slot, but if you don't have the best in slot, or your best in slot is not very good, then you shouldn't use it. If it doesn't actually improve the build, then it's not best in slot. If your rolls are not good, then don't use it. Use the best thing that you have, because that will make your build the best that you can have. That's pretty simple, right? Don't use something because you're told to. Use something because it is good for your build and it is the best option that you have. That's what you want on your build, the best option for you. Alright guys, that was a long video, but thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the support. I'll see you in the next one.